Alrighty, we're gonna do a little garden tour. So we have four foot by 8 foot by 10-inch beds. They're all made out of 1 by 10. So in the first one, we've got lots of different types of squash. I think these three are my spaghetti squash. Didn't honestly mark them, so I know I did 3 spaghetti squash plants and 2 sugar pie pumpkins, but I don't remember if I did the pie pumpkins on this side or that side. So either way, there's 3 spaghetti squash and 2 sugar pie pumpkins. I did a type of marigold down the center of the bed, so once those start blooming, we'll start bringing in the beneficial pollinators. And then we have a yellow summer squash right here, and then that one is a zucchini, and both of those I got started plants from Tractor Supply, because with my tomatoes and my squash and cabbage plants, I started them all from seed back in March in the garage, and a mouse came through and ate all my seedlings, so I did end up having to get started plants for those. Most everything else in the garden I started from seeds. So these spaghetti squash and pumpkins and the marigolds, I started all those from seeds. I just put those in 3 weeks ago, so that's how big they are 3 weeks later. And then on that side, those are all green beans. There are 4 rows. They're all spaced 4 inches apart, even though they all look really close together. There's 2 different kinds. I did the dragon's tongue, which are like the white with the purple speckles, and then just the blue lake bush beans, which are pretty standard. And then over here in front of the cattle panel trellis, these are birdhouse gourds, and I actually have them over on that trellis as well, but I started these 3 weeks ago as well. So that's how big they are at 3 weeks, and then they will get their tendrils and start lining up as well. That's just how big they are 3 weeks later. In this bed, we have a volunteer lettuce plant from last year that I just haven't had the heart to rip up. And then I started some cucumbers here 3 weeks ago. They're doing okay. I have cucumbers in another part of the garden, so I just started these so I'd have something on this side of the trellis. And then my cabbages, I have 5 of the purple ones and 6 of the green ones. Have had some issues with cabbage worms. I did spray them with neem oil the other day. I haven't seen much new activity from the cabbage worms since then. And then that is a volunteer squash plant from last year. I don't know if it's a zucchini or a yellow squash, but we're just kind of letting it do its thing. So that's this side of that bed. And then this part of the garden, we had a bunch of leftover fence pickets from when we redid our fence last summer. So along with 2x4s, we made these beds that are 18 inches high, and they're 2 feet by 5 feet. So in this bed, that's called a mangave plant. It's obviously not a vegetable of any sort, it's just out here chilling. Strawberries are here, and these are the only other things that I got started plants for. I did not start them from seed, but we have lots of sunflowers in the back, and I did start those from seed. So same thing in the next bed, lots of sunflowers in the back, lots of kale. I've just been trimming it off and feeding it to the ducks and chickens, honestly, because I don't really like kale, but I thought it'd be fun to grow it apparently. There's a lot of stuff that I'm just kind of experimenting with, if you will, in the garden this year. Some stuff that we've never eaten before, some stuff that I've never grown. Spacing we're kind of experimenting with, so it's just kind of a fun thing. We're not in a situation where the garden has to be like a huge source of food for us. It is a passion project of mine, but it's also a big learning experience, so I give it some grace when it comes to trial and error. I've got some herb plants over here, some oregano and some sage that I need to plant in the backyard and haven't gotten around to it yet. And then we have turnips. And I've never done turnips before. I do have them coming in. I was really bad about getting my greens that I started from seed thinned out. I thinned them out really late, and so a lot of, I think the carrots will be fine, but the kohlrabi and the turnips, I think it's going to be pretty small little root bases, just because I did not get them thinned when I should have. And I do actually have some onions in here. You can see onion. And I didn't really think when I planted those that the turnip greens would get so big, and they've kind of overcast them, so I don't know if those are going to do anything, honestly. Once again, learning experience, just having fun with it. We've got some porchocula that is a type of flower down there in that pot that I started from seed. And then over here, there are 3 rhubarb plants. This one was the biggest, but my neighbor's cat will not stay out of my garden, and it broke off 3 of the biggest branches today, and I'm really frustrated about that. But there's a second one here, and then another one here, and then I also have herbs in here. We've got, this is pineapple sage, regular sage. We've got lemon thyme and regular thyme. Nasturtiums growing in here, and then some rosemary. And I kind of planted different types of flowers and herbs just kind of throughout the garden, just to help bring in some beneficial insects and fill in spaces. We've got zinnias that I started from seed that are coming up there. And then we have our peas on cattle panel trellises as well. We did like a 4-foot by 3-foot little square. And then I have kohlrabi down here and some more oregano. And the kohlrabi, I didn't get it thinned out soon enough. It's not even something that like I intended to grow. It was a free seed packet that the seed company threw in, and so I was like, hey, why not? But I've never actually eaten kohlrabi. I don't really know what to do with it. So it's just kind of a leafy green right now, and I've been giving some of it to the ducks. And I haven't seen much going on as far as like the actual bulb forming. So no, don't really know what to do about that, but it's pretty. And then I've got one type of snap pea over here. I started my peas really late. Honestly, with the heat, I'm surprised that they're still doing anything. But they're giving me a few peas, and usually I just snack on them when I'm out here weeding the garden or watering. I thought I started flower seeds in that pot. Apparently I didn't, because nothing has come up, so that was regret on my part. I have another type of pea over here. I think they were called the purple mammoths. They're okay. They're really pretty. I find them, even if I pick them kind of young, I find them to be really fibrous, and they're supposed to be like a type of like snacking pea, like a sugar snap, or what's the other kind of pea that, I don't know, there's another kind of pea that's supposed to be like for snacking that you don't have to shell. That's what these are supposed to be, and I'm not very pleased with how they taste. They're just really fibrous, and you take a bite out of them and they're just kind of bitter, and not really pleased with them, but they're really pretty. They have very pretty little blossoms, so kind of fun. And then we have carrots down here, and my carrots actually do look like they're going to be okay. I thinned them out quick enough. I have 2 different types. I have a normal like orange kind in the front, and then a purple kind in the back, and they are actually spaced like 8 inches apart, even though it's all lush and green together. But yeah, so then we have perennial plants in the garden as well. I planted a bunch of lemongrass. I'm kind of hoping it helps with the cat situation, but I'm doubtful, honestly. Then we have this bed, which is kind of a mix mash of a bunch of stuff. I have green beans here, but they're the same types that are in the other garden, and I started these about 3 weeks earlier, but we had a really late frost that wiped a bunch of them out, and then the neighbor's cats insisted on using the garden beds as a litter box. And even though I do put straw in my garden beds when I plant seeds directly, and I'm trying to get those to come up. I don't put straw over them because then the seeds are going to have a harder time coming up. So in the process of them using this as litter box, they moved a bunch of seeds around. Things aren't in the rows that I planted them in. So I'm just kind of letting them do their thing, and I'll harvest whatever there is. But these are going to flower, so they should be setting beans soon. And then I have lots of big tall sunflowers in here. I did some taller varieties on the ends, and then a shorter variety right there that only get about 3 feet tall, just to kind of fill in there. And then in between, we've got the cattle panel trellis. I've got a big arch that runs the entire length of both beds, and we are doing lots of different types of melons. So I have the exact same thing planted on both sides. This side is doing much better. Don't understand if it's getting more sun or not. I think it's getting more early morning sun, but this side should get a lot of evening sun. So I would think that they would be growing the same, but they're not, because I've got 2 tiny little watermelons, 2 different types of watermelon plants there, itty bitty things, and then the exact same things on this side, right there, and everything was planted at the same time. So we'll just kind of see what they do. But I've got 2 different types of like personal sized watermelons, and the goal for everything is to vine up on the trellises, and I'll get like some netting to hold the melons and hopefully keep them from falling to the ground when the time comes for them to release from the vine. And then I've got a personal sized cantaloupe, and then I've got Kajari melons and Tigger melons, and I did a watermelon last year, but all these other melons are new to me, so we'll just kind of see how it goes, but I've heard they're really good. So I've got 2 of each type throughout here. And these are actually doing pretty good in mining. They're starting to set blossoms. This one's kind of having to kind of train them a little bit. I don't mind if like they latch onto the sunflowers, but I don't want them choking each other out. So that's what's there. And then from the T-post over, we've got our cucumbers. You can tell the leaf shape is a little bit different. So there's 2 different types. I did an early Russian, which is like a slicing cucumber, and then dar cucumbers, which are a pickling cucumber, and I did the dars last year. I didn't actually pickle any of them, but they grew really well. And then it's the same thing over here. I don't think that one even came up, but that one did, and that's why I ended up starting some more on the end of that row there, just to kind of boost production, because I was having such a hard time with this side. The number of plants that I have on this side will be more than enough for us if they produce, but I wanted this side of the trellis to fill out, and I don't really know how that's going to go, but it is what it is. And then at the end of this row, the end of the green beans and the sunflowers, I have loofah gourds, and they are very, very slow growers. They germinated very quickly, but I planted, you can kind of see that right there and there and there. I planted those by seed in the ground at the same time that I planted this beast. And those are birdhouse gourds, which I also planted over there, but I did that 3 to 4 weeks after I did these. So yeah, I planted these at the exact same time, and they grow like a friggin' weed all the way up the trellis already, and these not so much. I'm just starting to get like little tendrils that are locking on. And I've heard that loofahs are like really slow growers, and you won't think that they're producing anything, and then like bam, out of nowhere they're producing stuff. So there's more zinnias there, a different type. But yes, on this side we've got the birdhouse gourds, and that's honestly just kind of a fun thing to grow. I knew it would fill out quickly. I don't know how many birdhouses I'm going to be making out of them, but it's the beauty of gardening. You can have some fun. And then our tomatoes, and like I said earlier, I did have to get tomato plants from the store. Actually, everything that I got plant-wise from the store, including the herbs, I got from Tractor Supply, and they had the Bonnie Best plants, which they offer hybrids and heirlooms. So I have a mixture of heirlooms and hybrids throughout here, and they just seem to have the best quality plants for store plants that I've seen around here. So we've got different ones throughout. I ended up doing like 4 cherry tomato plants. I really like cherry tomatoes, and I did like a couple different varieties. But as the tomato plants are getting taller, I'm trying to keep all the leaves off the ground, so snapping off and pruning branches when that happens. And then we've just got some green garden wire stuff that we are using to hold them up on the cattle panel trellis as they get bigger. This is a cherry tomato, and it's already going crazy. It's got little babies on it. It's like a wild child. Like a lot of the other ones are very bushy, and this one's just like everywhere. And then we've got flowers planted at the front. Some lavender at the end of each bed. I've got hostas and salvias over there in the corner. And then in this corner we've got lilies, and then my raspberry plant that I put in this year has little tiny babies on it. I've heard that you're not supposed to eat them the first year. You're supposed to pinch them off, but I don't have the heart to do that. I do have a little trellis that I need to stake here in the corner to give it some more support, because it's just got the little bamboo sticks that came with it in the pot when I got it from the store. And yeah, so that's the garden.